The next verse is spoken by Mahamuni, who asks a question of the Buddha, whom he refers to as Mahamuni, or great sage. Verse 691. Are all things to be regarded as unborn or not? Pray tell me, O Mahamuni. The doctrine of causelessness, no birth, the rising of existence, all these are held by the philosophers. It's so easy to get philosophical about the Buddha's teachings, and recent verses have been concerned about this, how we mustn't get caught up in philosophical meditation, philosophical cogitation. This is the wrong response to the Buddha's teachings. The teachings' sole purpose is to direct us to the purity of our own awareness. And this means disassociating our awareness from all notions of an external world. When our consciousness, our attention is out there, we're not self-aware. We are not self-aware. And when I say out there, I mean on all ideas, all assumptions, all notions of an external world, all notions of other people. And I'm using the word notions. Notions only exist in here, in our heads. So we're actually all caught up in our heads, in our own notions. We're all adrift on what I once described as an ocean of notions. And we can just cut that right off if we can realize or regard the world as like a dream or as unborn. This is what unborn means. It's like a dream. A dream comes into existence momentarily. A dream comes into existence instantaneously. It doesn't have a long gestation. It's not the result of a history of events. It happens like that. So let's have a look at what Muhammad is asking. Are all things to be regarded as unborn or not? So this is something that the philosophers will get hold of and can discuss and cogitate to the nth degree. You can probably get various degrees of unbornness or whatever. He mentions the doctrine of causelessness, no birth, the rising of existence, as particular views held by the philosophers. Now this is actually the case, isn't it? Modern science and religion both adhere to the doctrine of causelessness. I'm quite surprised that people still talk about the Big Bang. I even saw a documentary to the effect that no scientist who knows about this stuff actually subscribes to the notion of the Big Bang. But it still seems to be in common currency. And it's such a ridiculous idea. That there was nothing, and then there was this Big Bang. And there wasn't exactly nothing. Apparently the universe was crammed into a small ball, which we assume is a sphere. But this is before space and time, so we can't imagine this sphere hanging in empty space, because there wasn't any space. All there was this sphere, which suddenly exploded. Why should it explode? Where did this sphere come from? There's no cause for it. It's causeless. Our religious people will say, well, the universe does have a cause. God was the cause. God created the universe. But then you have to ask, well, what created God? God is that which arose without any cause, or which always was. So God is causeless. God was not born, no birth, and the rising of existence follows from God. So this is causelessness, no birth, the rising of existence. These are philosophical views held by both religious and scientific types. So what's Mahamuni asking? Should we go along with this or not? Well, let's get the Buddha's reply. Verse 692. I teach mind only, which is removed from the dualism of being and non-being. One should discard the view of birth and no birth, which causes various philosophical theories. So the Buddha is not concerned with things coming out of nothing or where things come from. All philosophical theories are focused on the world. And this is why we don't want to get involved with them. Because we are not concerned with where the world came from. This is, as enlightenment practitioners, we can enjoy getting into the cogitations of this sort of thing and thinking about it and reading up on latest scientific understandings, sure. But spiritually, we don't bother with any of that. It is not our concern. Our concern is with our consciousness, which is operating right now, our awareness, our attention. Our attention, I use the word consciousness, but it's a little bit vague. But to be more specific, let's talk about the attention, because the attention is operating right now. The attention is consciousness in action. So it's the attention. You're using your attention right now. Be aware of this, not as an idea, but as something which you can directly experience. It's your attention. If you're attending to these words, then this is your consciousness in action. Your consciousness is what is hearing these words. This is your awareness. This is what we come back to. This is what we rest in. And we can contemplate this. And in the contemplation of it, we can start seeing possibilities. Possibilities which I've described before as the rainbow body, and which in recent videos I've described as seeing Buddhas from other universes. So there are possibilities in this attention, which can seem quite mundane and boring at first. But anyway, that's not what we're looking for. Let's not stray too far from the verse. But this is what the Buddha means by mind only. We're not getting caught up. We're not thinking about the world. We don't need to. It does its own thing. The world is getting on with its own thing. Just like our dreams do. Our dreams get on with doing their thing. We don't need to take our cue from them. What we can be doing is exploring mind only, which is another way of labeling what I've just been describing. We take our cue from mind only, and we start mining what we could call the Mahayana possibilities. This is why these Mahayana sutras are so over the top. They are exploring the infinite potential of mind only. And this is the infinite potential of the realization of the very consciousness, awareness that is hearing this. This is surely a much more inspiring option than wondering where the world comes from. And did it happen with a big bang, or did God create it? These are limiting, very limiting notions. They've got their place, no doubt, but let's just leave them in their place and explore the possibility of infinite wonders. And I'll just finish off by having a look at verse 693. In the doctrine of causelessness, of no birth of birth, the notion of a causal agency is involved on which they depend. Effortless deeds come from nothingness, and deeds as ordinarily performed are mixed with motives. So we're getting back to the practical benefits of this teaching. So the Buddha again dismisses doctrines of causelessness, of no birth of birth, because they're caught up with notions of a causal agency. In other words, they're concerned with questions of where the world comes from, where the universe comes from. It was a big bang, or God made it. And we assume this happened in the remote past, and everything's just followed on since then. So this is the causal agency. And this is fine if you're wanting some kind of understanding for navigating your way through life. It's like a map that you can construct, scientific or a religious map. As enlightenment practitioners, we're not exactly tearing up the map, we're just putting it away in its plastic pocket and enjoying the scenery once again, which we've forgotten all about. And the upshot of this is effortless deeds come from nothingness. And this is to do with the behaviour of the enlightenment practitioner. The enlightenment practitioner gets on with what needs to be gotten on with. They are not behaving in accordance with their mood pattern. They're not trying to get something out of the world. They're not operating out of any resentment towards the world. We all have to act. We all have to get on with things. We've got responsibilities, perhaps, if not to others, then to ourselves. We need to get on with various activities, and if we're fortunate to not have to worry too much about income and jobs and getting food on the table, then we can devote ourselves to other pursuits, other charitable, political or creative pursuits, or just get on with your yoga practice or whatever. But in relation to this, I just wanted to read a little passage from the Discourse on Complete Purity for Alms-Gathering. There's a little conversation between the Buddha and Sāriputta, a famous disciple of the Buddha's. And the Buddha is talking to Sāriputta. Your faculties are very bright, Sāriputta. Your complexion very pure, very clear. In which abiding are you, Sāriputta? Now abiding in the fullness thereof. So the Buddha's noticed Sāriputta is going about with his arms round, and he's radiant, he's glowing, and The Buddha's asking him, where are you at, Sāriputta? Where are you at? What abiding are you abiding in the fullness thereof? And Sāriputta replies, abiding in emptiness do I, revered sir, now abide in the fullness thereof. In other words, Sāriputta is just getting on with things. He's not being motivated by a particular mood, by a particular anxiety, by a particular desire. He is coursing in emptiness. He is free of the world. He is not taking his cue from the world. He's well, I won't try to explain it. The Buddha says in reply, it is good, Sāriputta, it is good. You, Sāriputta, are now indeed abiding in fullness, in the abiding of great men. For this is the abiding of great men, Sāriputta, that is to say, emptiness. It doesn't sound very appealing, does it, this word emptiness? But what it means is empty of influences. And these are the influences which we've inherited from our evolution. Survival influences. Along with the concern for survival come anxieties, fears. These are very basic and deep down. That having a mind, these fears and anxieties driven by the survival impulse get magnified into all sorts of neurosis and psychosis and paranoia and everything else, insecurities and so on. These are what influence us. If you're abiding in emptiness, you're empty of all these influences. And you're actually abiding in fullness, the fullness of being. So effortless deeds come from nothingness, as opposed to deeds ordinarily performed, which are mixed with motives, the motives of our own psychology, of our own mood patterns. So this is the practical result. We can be free of this. We can be like Sāriputta, abiding in the fullness of emptiness.